love to be forgiven. You know, for the pain that I've caused people.
Hardwire. It means built in and not readily changed. Terminally connected, intrinsic, and relatively unmodifiable. Of a behavioral pattern. Most people today are hardwired to believe that criminal thinking and criminal behaviors are not correctable, and that people who are incarcerated for breaking the law cannot readily be changed. In this film, we'll attempt to prove otherwise by showing the full circle of programs that the Religious Services Unit within the Department of Corrections in Oregon is successfully deploying for all inmates.
That's excellent.
Oregon now leads the nation in having the lowest return of offenders, also commonly called recidivism. The Oregon Department of Corrections operates 14 prison facilities housing approximately 14,000 offenders for the period of their incarceration. The department also supervises 31,000 offenders currently on felony probation and post-prison supervision. Inmates face many challenges upon release from prison. We are challenged to identify ways to break down the barriers that are faced by those who are released from custody so that they have the opportunity to be productive members of society and do not return to criminal activity. In this film, we'll go full circle, from the very act of crimes on video to interviews of actual inmates who are serving out their sentences. And finally, we'll show you that it is possible to change and to become productive citizens in all circles of society. More people are locked up in the USA than in any other country in the world. It's a serious problem for America, and the state of Oregon is not exempt from this problem. In order to understand the full cycle of effects that crime places on our society, we need to understand what crime looks like and how it destroys the very fabric of our lives and plagues our nation with the outrageous cost of fighting it. The following video clips will give you a perspective of the face of crime, and then we can move onward to its effects.
It's a robbery at gunpoint, and 4 young men are suddenly in a fight for their lives. A gunshot, and one of them goes down off camera, critically wounded. A second gunshot kills one of the men instantly.
That's the moment. He aims the gun, and he kills him. You see that the struggle is not giving up that gun. This is literally a struggle for their life.
Then a third gunshot, grazing another victim's head. The cops know they need to catch this suspect quickly. But who is he, and where can they find him?
This young mother takes maternal instinct to a whole new level.
I walked over and got the 12 gauge, went in the bedroom and got the pistol and put the bottle in his mouth, and then I called 911.
18-year-old Sarah McKinley killed a man, she says, to protect her 3-month-old baby.
I'm here by myself with my infant baby. Can I please get a dispatcher out here immediately? Late
on New Year's Eve, police say 2 men, one armed with a 12-inch hunting knife, were trying to break into her home outside Oklahoma City. McKinley recognized one of them as someone she thought was stalking her.
He was from door to door trying to bust in. So he said I couldn't shoot until I could ring the door.
Your door's locked? Yes, I've got 2 guns in my hand. Is it okay to shoot him if he comes in the store?
I can't tell you that you can do that, but you do what you have to do to protect your baby.
The teen mother killed the 24-year-old intruder the second he stepped inside. The second intruder turned himself in. McKinley was home alone that night because her husband just died of cancer on Christmas Day.
The after effects of crime alter and reshape our lives both individually and on a global scale. Victims of trauma and crime both experience many of the same after effects, such as flashbacks, recurrent dreams of the event, self-blame, and psychological reactivity upon exposure to internal clues that symbolize or reassemble an aspect of the traumatic event. Like many of those who have served in wars or have experienced some sort of traumatic incident, post-traumatic stress disorder, or otherwise called PTSD, is common among victims of crime and can also be detected in and among those who have perpetrated acts of crime. In this segment, we will see how the Oregon Department of Corrections helps victims of crimes through its Victim Services Unit, helping to bring family members and crime victims together with their offenders who are incarcerated for the crimes they have committed.
I would love the chance to ask forgiveness, and I pray that the people that I have hurt and caused pain, not only to my victims, to my family, to everybody, that yes, I would love to be forgiven, you know, for the pain that I've caused people.
Inside the Oregon Department of Corrections, victims and those convicted of a crime can experience an opportunity of understanding, reconciliation, and in some instances, forgiveness through the Victim Services Facilitated Dialogue Program, also called FDP. It is here that true healing can take place by diagnosing the specific needs of a victim. In an intensive assessment period, the survivors are shown a process that helps them regain a sense of control in their lives and helps them make decisions about how to move forward. This crossing over brings offenders face to face with the survivor and victims of crime in a safe, voluntary experience with the goal of healing at its core. There are currently 30 volunteer facilitators statewide. The FDP allows the inmate to get on the same track as the victim or the survivors and take accountability for the crime committed, and also show genuine compassion towards that person's pain and suffering. The Victim Speakers Network, a pilot project of Victim Services, allows victims and survivors a track to cross over into the criminal justice system by sharing their stories in a correctional setting. Victims validate their feelings of suffering and loss in a safe atmosphere, allowing inmates to hear personal stories and publicly accept responsibility for the impact and harm they have caused by the after effect of their crimes on victims, their families, and their communities. Religious Services plays a key role in the healing and reconciliation of both those who have been touched by crime and those who have perpetrated those crimes. The Victim Services Unit of Religious Services is overseen by the Offender Management and Rehabilitation Division inside the Oregon Department of Corrections.
The two main programs currently offered are the Oregon VINE service. VINE stands for Victim Information and Notification Every Day, and the Facilitated Dialogue program. VINE is an anonymous, confidential, and free service that provides information and notification on an offender's current custody status. VINE tracks over 50,000 inmates in the custody of the Oregon Department of Corrections, the Oregon Youth Authority, and the county jails, as well as offenders on post-prison supervision. Facilitated dialogue gives crime victims the opportunity to have a conversation with the inmate convicted of a crime against them. The process must be victim-initiated, victim-centered, and driven throughout. It's confidential, and it involves extensive preparation and assessment to ensure that no further harm is done. Most crime victim survivors requesting facilitated dialogue have unanswered questions and want to tell the inmate about the impact of the crime. Inmates must meet program eligibility requirements in order for a request to move forward. They must take responsibility for the crime, have no appeals or legal remedies pending in the courts, and have good institution conduct. Since facilitated dialogue is voluntary, inmates that participate do so on their own accord, and they want to respond to the victim's request to meet.
Bullets fly, leaving a local family scared to be in their own home. Tonight, investigators say hate was driving the man who pulled the trigger. K2's Adam Kasimi is live outside the Multnomah County Inverness Jail. Adam, the family must be happy that he's behind bars tonight.
When I was young, probably about 11 years old, my dad was taken away from us, was put in prison himself. It took me on a path to destruction. You know, right after graduation from high school, found myself sentenced to 20 years with a 10-year minimum for an attempted murder, assault 1, burglary. But by the time I was 21 years old, you know, I was branded into a gang. Path of destruction, you know. I had no feelings, no remorse for the people around me. It was all about Jerry. I was mean, and my whole demeanor on life had changed. I went from a joking, loving, caring person to a mean, hateful, racist person.
It wasn't until I woke up one day with 9 consecutive death sentences that I realized that I really didn't know any. Because if I knew everything, I most certainly wouldn't have ended up in that particular situation. You know, I used to like to fight quite a bit. And sometimes those fights were unfair. You know, I've lost some, won some, but none of that was a deterrent from fighting, especially if I drank a little bit. Yeah, some of those, you know, in retrospect, some of those people that I fought or, you know, picked fights with did not deserve the things that happened. These things were manufactured. You know, these problems and situations were manufactured by me.
You know, even when I was on the street, I was a prisoner, you know. I wasn't free. I was still a prisoner to myself, you know. Always, even in the times when I was free, always looking over my shoulder because I was always running. So I was never, I haven't really been a free man my whole adult lifehood. You know, I would really like to say I would take it all back, but you know, I can't, because I would not be that person I am today without experiencing the things I've experienced. And I know that this time now is a learning, educational walk for me. It has put me in a place where I think twice about my actions. I think before I act. I'm looking to my future, you know, being productive and giving back to my community, you know. I know I can never replace what I've taken, but I can sure help in my future.
Well, religious services, we go way back. From the very first morning, the next morning after I arrived on death row, when Chaplain Jacobson appeared to my at my cell door, at my cell bars, to let me know that if there was anything I needed or anything like that, contact me. And I had asked them for ministerial visits because I needed to be able to see, clearly. I was a Christian, all my life, but I had fallen. Because of their visits, I was able to strengthen my relationship with God.
Am I a religious person? Yes, I'm a spiritual person. I have given my life to Jesus Christ. I'm a person now who, through my experiences, have studied the Bible. I seek and I search, and I pray. Religious services has opened a door for me to worship, to go to pray, to be with other people who seek the same spiritual walk I do, that have been down the road. If I have questions, I have answers. It's almost like a family. You can come together with some people who can help you. I pray now, and I've never prayed, and I'm not afraid to pray. I'm not afraid to stand up for my Lord.
So just how far-reaching are the arms of today's chaplains in the Oregon Department of Corrections? Let's take a look. This graphic gives an accurate picture of how integrated religious services and its chaplains have become inside and outside of Oregon's prisons. Chaplains directly affect the following: inmates, IMU and segregation, parole, families, policies, staff members, hospice patients, medical patients, mental health patients, volunteers, and inmates going back into the community through reentry. On March 22, 2012, the Pew Research Center, a nonpartisan fact tank that provides information on the issues, attitudes, and trends shaping America and the world, issued its report on religion in prisons, a 50-state survey of prison chaplains. In the report, chaplains were asked what they do and what they think they should do in their work environment. They reported a very broad description of duties. Of the 1,474 paid chaplains that were surveyed, 730 participated in the survey, including chaplains in the Oregon Department of Corrections. When they were asked what is important for an inmate's rehabilitation, 81% said that it is absolutely critical that inmates with substance abuse or mental health issues receive treatment while incarcerated, allowing for a full recovery. More than 75% say that support from outside religious services groups after release is absolutely critical in order for the ex-offender to experience a successful reentry or rehabilitation, with 61% reporting an increase in program completions over the past 3 years. More attention has been placed on improving the quality as a result, with 57% reporting positive quality assurance results in religious rehabilitative program content. In the final analysis of the report, chaplains all agreed that in order to successfully rehabilitate and secure a positive and lasting reentry that drops recidivism rates even lower, religious programs, its services and activities are the keys to lowering crimes in our communities once offenders are released on a local and a national level. Religious services is in part possible because of the more than 2,500 volunteers that selflessly give their time to inmates. The Religious Services Advisory Council consists of volunteer leaders of the many faith groups inside Oregon prisons. the Assistant Director of Human Resources inside the Oregon Department of Corrections and previous Religious Services Administrator Gary Sims spoke to this group about the importance of volunteers inside the Oregon State prisons. Here are just a few points that the Assistant Director, Mr. Sims, made to the recent meeting of these valuable volunteers.
I've been here 2.5 years and come from the state of Ohio, and which is a much larger system. 52,000 inmates, 32 prisons, and was responsible for religious services. Men and women, once they come to prison, they're not going to stay in prison. You know they're going to come back to the community. And one of the greatest things that I found through my tenure working in the correction is that most men and women want to go home, and 3 things that they want. They want a job, they want a house, and they want their families. We need to bring the people that make a difference in the community inside of these institutions. Those men and those women who are locked up in prison, when things go wrong in their lives, and they do go wrong, family members die. They burn up most of the relationship that they've had. And the only people they can have is you, and understanding that you cannot throw them out with the wash. If it wasn't for the faith community, it would not have happened. You're the only one in our culture, in our society, helps people that have been downtrodden. That is something to feel honorable and gracious about, because you're going against the grain. Our culture doesn't embrace that. I can't speak for the inmates, but I'm saying I was there, I'm there, and I see what you do. I went over to OSB and I went to the mental health unit. I went there, just going in, talking to a man. The man says, "Thank you for coming to see me and treating me like a human being." That's huge, because no one wants to do it. It's the tough stuff. It's the places where no one wants to go. Those are the questions and issues that we need to ask ourselves. Oh, we really want to do? We really want to do this, or we're just playing games? It's not about playing games. It's about people's lives. It's about people, not only their life, but what happened with their family on the outside. It's much pain and struggles that these men have and women have in this prison. Their family going through the same thing on the outside. We need you. The community needs you. The inmates need you. The family needs you. The victim needs you.
In Oregon, under the leadership of the current Religious Services Administrator, Dennis Holmes, chaplains have expanded the role of the prison's chaplaincy by integrating into a variety of other correctional operations beyond religious services, including Special Housing Unit Transition Team, Activities Committee, Enrichment Committee, Multnomah County African American Program, National Corrections Employee Week Committee, Operations Meetings, Special Needs Inmate Evaluation Committee, Weekly Operations Meeting with all managers, Release Counselor Meetings, Correctional Case Management Meetings, Business Management Team, Multidisciplinary Meetings, Shift Briefings, Facilitated Dialogue Programs, Emergency Support Services, Peer Support Counseling, Oregon Chaplain Large-Scale Emergency Response Teams. Oregon helps inmates in Oregon with the program called Home for Good in Oregon, or HGO, by connecting inmates to their faith group on the outside with religious volunteers and local religious groups. HGO is recognized nationally as a premier reentry program for inmates returning to their communities. HGO, or Home for Good in Oregon, works with hundreds of volunteers to assist churches, synagogues, and other religious organizations to more safely reintegrate offenders into their communities. One of the primary points of focus with HGO puts inmates in touch with positive and successful people in their home community to encourage and support them. HGO itself does not provide jobs or housing, but the support network designed around HGO participating faith communities continues to grow in its knowledge of and access to such resources. HGO will connect participating inmates to as many resources as are available in their community. For for inmates participating in religious services in the Oregon Department of Corrections. HGO is the way to go. Home. If our programming simply provides religious information and accommodates religious practices without impacting the thinking and behaviors of the inmates, life change is unlikely. If all we do is educate criminals in the tenets of various faith traditions, the result will simply be religiously educated criminals. Dennis Holmes, Religious Services Administrator, Oregon Department of Corrections. In 2011, inmates inside the 14 prisons of Oregon attend regularly over 18,235 events, services, and programs of a religious nature. Religious Services seeks to provide a wide variety of spiritual paths for inmates to access through staff, volunteers, and written resources in the belief that a person must be treated in all aspects of their life: spiritual, mental, physical, etc. The cycle of crime in Oregon is being broken by inmates who want to go full circle from being criminals to being ex-offenders with genuine and lasting law-abiding pro-social behaviors once they are released back into the community. Religious Services plays a big part in helping inmates succeed.
Spirituality to me is realizing that life is just bigger than me.
If you could change yourself, then a lot of us would have done it a long time ago, but we need help, you know, and so we look to that higher power to help to change us.
If people really take part of religious services, regardless of what faith or regardless of what spiritual path they follow, that if they're really serious about it, it will give them the strength and the courage and the confidence and ability to get out on the streets, to practice that same faith on the street and make it. I honestly don't believe that I could be productive in prison or outside of prison one day without being able to have this time to grow in my faith.
Everything I've read shows that people that walk out of prison with a strong religious base don't come back. And that's something that's very important to me. I don't want to see, I mean, I've seen guys come back over the last 6 years that have just been, it devastates you after a while. You're like, man, you thought they had it going.
Utilize any religious services that are available that you choose to be a part of, because it will help you to maintain a calm, a peace, you know, while you're doing this time, because it's not easy. And, you know, a lot of things don't go your way, and there's a lot of things that, you know, can push you to the limit. But I believe if you're involved in some sort of religious practices, you know, that the institutions have to offer, it will help you to become more patient and more humble, and it will help you to get through your time a lot easier.
You've got nothing to do here except time. What is time? Time is something for you to learn by. Learn. I mean, learn. Take it to heart. If you're an American Indian, if you're a Wiccan, if you're a Catholic, Christian, whatever, take that time to learn, to grow, to nourish yourself.
Genuine spirituality, when introduced into the offender's worldview, can positively impact behavioral change. As stated within the Oregon Accountability Models Correction Plan, when an offender's individual risk factors are identified and addressed and mitigated, there is a less likelihood that they will commit new crimes. Maybe intuitively, or perhaps through the guidance of a spiritual mentor, the inmate may come to the realization that many of their problems are ultimately spiritual problems that require spiritual solutions. In truth, it seems to be the case with most problems we all have between human beings, whether it be between individuals or between nations. These inmates who we have met in this film are an example of hundreds, if not thousands, of inmates in the state of Oregon who want to change their behaviors now that they are incarcerated and living under the state's custody. Chaplains are now needed more than ever. Some inmates have gone a full circle through the doors of the prison chapels, and Oregon, as we know, leads the nation in low recidivism rates. When we look back in the near future to why this is, we might just find out how to go forward by looking to ourselves for change in the way we see inmates, chaplains, and spirituality through the programs and services of religious services inside the Oregon Department of Corrections. Thanks for watching. Oh yeah, and one more thing. Where do you think the U.S. ranks among other nations with regards to prison populations? Let's have a look.